Powered by BROADNET Concepts.
Daniel, I only accept apologies in cash. So if you have any need to apologize, just pass the offering basket. Okay. Okay. I should take off the mask so you can identify my face. Okay. Oh, okay. Better now? Great. So today we're talking about cinema cameras. They're just trying to walk up some technical things. So I could show you some things up here. I basically a director, cinematographer, and also a colorist. And most of the range of cameras I work with, it's actually a hybrid. You get from the cinema EOS, which starts from the C100s to the C700s, and for gimbal work where you have want to rig some crash cam or something, I do dabble into most of the photo cameras to actually just do pick away shots or those pickups or what you normally use the GoPro for. So in this conversation, I'll try as much as possible to stay as least technical as I can, so that I'll be able to, so we could all gain perspective. So first things first, most of you are already creators based on the fact that you rely on your imaginations to actually capture images, okay? Before anything else, before the camera, before the buttons, before all the ones and zeros, shutter speed, ISO, whatever it is, it basically starts from your mind, okay? What you've been able to articulate. Because during my nature of work, there's a lot of prep that goes into it. And those prep usually determines whether the result becomes shitty or becomes great. Like I tell people, you can take a $1 million camera and point it to a dustbin. It's not going to give you a $1 million picture. It's just going to have a dustbin. You get. And you could take your cell phone and you could go into this well thought out process, and that image will be most powerful than a $1 million camera. So as the contribution to the process, the most strongest point in the key chain is you yourself. So first thing I usually tell people is that your mind is almost like a library. You can only reproduce what you have seen. So if you keep churning in garbage imagery, that's the only way you're going to be churning out garbage imagery. Okay, so I once had this joke with my wife, and we're arguing about African Magic. And she was like, let's buy DSTV. I'm like, no, I'm not buying DSTV. And she was like, why? I'm like, I'm trying to protect my mind. She was like, why? The house is boring. I said, no worry, I'll get you Netflix and internet and stuff. It was a toggle for. And she was like, wait, why am I against African Magic? I make movies here in Nigeria. I make commercials here in Nigeria, but the same community I come from, I refuse to show support and actually watch their work. I'm like, I had to reply her by saying that we are not yet at a stage whereby I find the things coming out at the level at which I want to retain. Because whether I like it or not, subconsciously, I'm more conscious of my subconscious, what I attract in. Because when I get into the camera, when you get into scenarios or the places you have to improvise, all the plans you have go out the window, and it's just your reflex kicking in. So it's only the quality of what you've actually taken would come in handy of oh, that guy can think on his feet fast. Or wait, where's that one coming from? That's the difference between those questions. So most times I deliberately catalog the kind of things I accept in and the things I actually bring into my creative space as a result of, because in the end of it, that's all you have. You can have all the gear in the world, but without imagination, you are stuck. So some place I go to look for inspiration. Some people go to art galleries and watch paintings, but I'm not that rich, so I really can't get to relate to stuff like that. There's a website called shotdeck.com. They're in beta. It's called SHOTDECK. So they just catalog shots from different movies and amazing scenes. And I usually stock them all the day. You could go them exterior scenes, docs time, and you see hundreds of films that have been shot during that hours and frames from that would trigger several things in your mind and give you the opportunity to explore, especially when I'm putting together a pitch deck, because that's what I usually do. And you kind of get to think of, okay, so how do all this tie into the conversation of Canon and creating amazing imagery? And one thing you have to understand is that you have to understand that filmmaking is actually 3 parts, at least from where I work from, it's actually in 3 parts. You get, there's the art side, which brings us to the table, right? There's the science, which are the ones and zeros that you have to know underneath the hood to be able to get you the result you want. And there's the business part, which is the reason why you would actually stay long enough to survive and give that or turn into profits. Because you can have one or the other. You must actually find a way to balance all 3 if you tend to survive this game. Or else you're just going to be the guy who does it at the weekend but has a 9-to-5 job during the day. That's going to be your standards. And in keeping that in mind, a couple of things that you have to now think through is that we have factors that we can't control, like the economics of scale. You get what $10,000 was 3 years ago, even at let me not go too far, last year, 2019, what the value of $10,000 is and what it is now has gone way more. So you have to find a way of staying competitive, delivering much imagery, and not probably selling your soul or doing blood money just because you want to afford a camera and a lens. And that's with the fact of still trying to manage annoying clients who says they can do it for cheap and they are requesting for over the moon Hollywood budgets. There's still that to manage at the corner though. So keeping all this in mind, you have to find a solution that's effective and both efficient, which is my choice of words, which whenever I actually talk, it has to be effective. Oh, okay, they came back. Okay, they found my Instagram already. So they're just going to cycle through, and I'll show you some images from some commercials we did, you get. So being effective means being able to deliver the result you promised on paper. And being efficient means you're profitable enough to come back and try it again. And in the space of that line, you actually look for tools that can actually help you bridge that gap. And and in my own research, right, Canon has been the only manufacturer that consistently exists in that space. We have people who are way above or way below, but nobody balances that middle vault of a triangle that actually could walk that fine line. You get. And when I started my journey, I started with a 70, with it everyone. I started from a film camera actually, before I actually went into 70. The film camera was in my secondary school days, you get. That's when I could still access labs that you could wash negative. I don't think I even know where to even find oneself. So we moved into the era whereby people wanted more, okay? And we needed cameras whereby I don't think of screen NDs in the front. I had an audio solution if I'm supposed to pipe in sound into the camera, and it could withstand, it has a decent dynamic range to create cinematic images, you get. If you get to watch CNN a lot, you get to see that those documentaries that are outside the news, 90% of them are done on Canon. Most of them are done on Canon. So it begged for the question that, okay, so we need a solution that is ready to go and not so expensive that I could actually relate and actually deliver main work. And most people in Lagos, even the bus conductor that says he wants to be a music video director, when you pick up the phone and ask him what do you want to use, he'll say he wants to use red. You get. And that's probably Yari Alexa, but mostly red. And there was now the stigmatization in the industry that if you're not doing reds, you're not doing amazing imagery. But that's not the fact of the matter, because the ones and zeros does not add up. Because here's the fact of this. If I have this red cloth or this wine-colored cloth here, right, and I photograph it with 200 cameras, it does not change the hue value of this cloth. They would all faithfully reproduce the hue value, which means you have to now understand something, which is the next stage, your workflow. What is the part that actually has to set me up from this part and take me up to actually get that imagery? What am I supposed to do? Because every camera is like a tool. You have to understand its strengths, you have to understand its weaknesses so that you can actually set it up for success. Because that's what you're doing 99% of the time. You're trying to set yourself up for success. How can I get from here to that other imagery, right? I'll show you an image now. Sorry, can you get out of this post? Let's scroll up a bit. Oh, okay, yeah. You see this imagery here? The one with the 4-in-1. I don't know if you can pull this up. Yeah. If you can pull that up, let's see if that will load. Yeah, you see this imagery? This is a Canon C200. But if I tell somebody this was like some movie camera out of Michael Bay's whatever, there's no way you're going to argue with me. This, in my own opinion, right, is a decent imagery that you can have your dynamic range, you have your clean contrast, you see your skin tones, and it was like an epic movie that was shot in Abeokuta. You get. And so I had to understand what's the workflow that actually can carry me from shitty imagery that looks like, sorry, no offense, I'm about to say something that we cinematographers says in private, but it might be, I don't know, no offense to anyone. So we're having this conversation amongst cinematographers in Lagos. There's this like WhatsApp group, and they said the only reason why they bring in foreign people into the country is because until when you show the value of your imagery that is better than the guy holding the DSLR, they will not pay you up to the value of that imagery. Common sense behind that is that there are levels to these situations, okay? Until you can clearly distinguish yourself that you are worth every single cent, then you can actually demand for more value in terms of monetary value. But until that, all you just have is talk. And this was like a couple of years back while we were having that banter, and that can stuck in my mind. Like, how do you get to create cinematic imagery? How do you get to set up yourself for success? How do you get to do your groundwork? How do you get to position yourself in such a way that you have all it takes to actually make it happen? Okay, so I started with the camera I could have access to during this period, which was the C200, the Cinema C200. It had like amazing capability, which means that it could record raw. It had built-in NDs inside the cameras. It had slow motions, and it had like clean ISOs, and they're like all these low light capabilities, which you already know Canon for, inbuilt with the inbuilt color science that comes with it, right? So we started doing tests, right? We took the camera in, and the goal was like, okay, how can we make that look like this film? Because there's like a reference film that was actually kept behind. And we did, I would try not to get into technical details, but the long and short of the matter was that we designed a system. A system means what conditions do you set up the camera to actually capture that favors the camera? Which means you have to truly understand the sensor, like the technology that you're standing behind. Not just by saying, oh, this is a camera that's capable. Every camera is capable of generating images. Every camera also has its limitations in terms of the capability of the sensor, how many dynamic range. So, for example, if I expose for this shot, we're all photographers here, right? We all know what our normal exposure is, right? So if that's my normal exposure, how many stops above my normal exposure can I afford to go above and still recover the integrity of my image? What happens when I starve my sensor of light? What happens when I take these party lights and use it to light my scene that has very strong hue that could go out of the camera's gamut, which means like your color space? For you guys, it would be like sRGB and Rec 709, right? That's the color space you mostly work in. For us, that would be like P3 or Rec 2020, or even Rec 709. So knowing that, okay, so how does the green play in the camera? How does, if I put a bold red dress, how's that going to translate? And this time, guess what? We do not have the luxury of Photoshop. Photoshop's an amazing, powerful tool that allows you to focus on one frame, or Lightroom, or any of the photo editing softwares. We have to do this in real time. Wherever you actually see the video of actually people walking, it has to look freaking amazing. If it's short of that, you're fired. Because that's what it is. Like, when we shot out, pull up, let me show you another post. Can we go up? Can we go, scroll up a bit? Oh, okay, that was like a Pepsi that we shot. The story behind this product shot was interesting, right? It was like, if we do not get this shot, if the client does not approve, you're fired. You're not coming back to this agency. That was the case I was stuck in between. This was when they came up with the Black Max campaign with the new Pepsi bottle. This was shortly after Corona, when this whole campaign came up. And we were supposed to like do something, but there's a limitation of you could go into artists, but because Corona, nobody understood it then. Everybody was like on the high side. Nobody wanted anybody to come in and stuff like that. So agencies being agencies kept the scenario that this is the client from Pepsi, which is SBC, right? This is what they want, right? This is deliverables they're expecting from you, right? What's your budget? So you go in, you prepare your budget, your breakdown. Okay, now what's your treatment? How are you going to approach this thing? You bring all that into the room and you're like, wait, sorry, this is not going to work. What's guaranteed that you're going to use like a CANON system over what we already know and we're used to? And like, no, this is my process and this is how it will work. I'm like, and you're like, no, this is not how it will work. And you have this back and forth with them, and it gets to the point like, okay, no problem, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this, right? We're going to give you the job. But if it goes sideways, you're done for. You're done for means, it doesn't mean you lost the job. You're done for means you're terminated with the agency. You get. And it was so much huge pressure for just this freaking annoying one frame. And everything that's inside this frame, I could tell you. It was a gray background with some blue lights and a mirror that was giving this whole borderless reflection on the whatever, and some clean spec, like very simple shot that you could probably shoot on a 5D, on a 7D. But because of the stakes and the people involved, there was so much, because we're in an industry whereby most people do not know what they're doing. Okay? Everybody just wants to get on the good side of the best person to go in. And they pack all that stress, all that chaos to your table to manage, because you are the creative. You're the one who has to deliver the shot. You're the one who has to deliver the game. If anything goes wrong, whether the schedule is off book, whatever, it comes back to you. So it brings us back into the conversation of staying effective and efficient and having a solution that you actually totally understand. Which for me was the entire CANON Cinema EOS line, because like I buried myself in that. And most times I usually end up using either a quarter of my light package or half of the light package, which in turn saves me some money, saves me some budget. You can see how all that ties in. Like I said, you have to be able to balance the three sides. The science, right? The art, and the what? And the business. That's the only way you get to last long. Because nobody cares if you shoot the next big Burna Boys video that's a hit, if at the end of that project you only walk home with 20K. You're not doing it for 20K as profits. You're doing it to be able to pay your bills. You're doing it to be able to actually take pride in what you've been able to create, take pride in what you've been able to do, and that way of life is paying for your lifestyle. Okay? So it's something the ones and zeros have to add up. When you hit the books, the maths have to add up to impress your clients, and your own personality of what you're trying to do, because every single photographer, if I take a look at all of your work, it is always unique, because we do not all see the world in the same way. Whether be we grew up in the same neighborhood, the fact that varying perspective, right, is the reason you charge what you charge. So when you get the phone call and say, hey, I need you to come do my work, and how much do you charge? And you tell the person, I'm sorry, my day rate is 750,000 naira. And they're asking you, is that day rate plus your equipment? And you're like, no, that's you. And you're like, wait, why should I pay you that day rate? And I'll give you the reply I gave to the person. I told the person, you're paying me for my set of choices, you're paying me for my perspective, and you're paying me for the contribution I bring to actually deliver your intent and imagery. You have to be able to get to that place whereby you yourself are a value. It's only when you can actually deliver that amount of value that you can actually command that amount of wealth. Sure, you're going to meet people who's going to like, no, they can't afford you. Sure, they're going to go to somebody else. Sure, that has happened several times. I've had several clients who has walked away and even cursed at me for actually even giving them the figure I asked them to actually pay me. But guess what? 2 years down the line, they circle back. You know that your fee that year was too high. Can we talk? I think we want to do it now. It does always happen. So do not get discouraged when you like hit the saying of, oh, you feel, because there's sometimes when you get to a place where you're delivering more value than your actual worth. And we do that a lot because in where we work in commercials. Commercials is the only industry you cannot hide. People need to see the money on the screen. It's not like a movie whereby you're looking for a story. No, is it fine? Is it dazzling? Is the imagery amazing? Commercial is the sell ground. It's almost like saying there's a graphic artist doing a poster and the poster sucks. You can tell like, yo, what's this? Who did this rubbish? Imagine picking up, you see those women that sell local mixture of herbs, right? Imagine they create their own poster and they put it on the billboard, they themselves. Just imagine. And you want to compare that to the Coca-Cola's ad that's coming with the new Coke Zero. I don't know if you get my point. There's like mileage between them. So all these things contribute to the body of work. And you have to protect your mind. Because it's what you end up keeping in here, that's what you end up giving out from here. So the fact that you wake up and you pick up your phone and you go through the next Yoruba movie and you think you're catching fun and you think you're enjoying yourself, hell yeah, you're enjoying yourself. But I guarantee you would not be able to stand in the classical walk where that kind of imagery is supplying. Because all that you've stored in here is all that's going to come out of here. So the space you're trying to play, always put yourself in that space so that, because the mind works, the mind is like monkey see, monkey do. You get it? For the fact that you've seen it once, we're humans, it comes to our nature to replicate. It's the reason why your children at home or your siblings at home or your younger ones, they look at you to copy you. It's the way we learn. It's the way humans are programmed. No matter how, see, the day God shows us how he can rapture to heaven, like if God comes down and shows us, okay, we see God, we see probably he does wing like this and he fly and enter heaven, I guarantee you that's the day man will start to build an engineering machine that should replicate that process. Because that's the way we are wired. We saw birds flying and we came out with plane, right? We saw fishes swimming and we came out with a boat since we could not actually swim. We even learned to swim, but came out with a boat that could go great distance of water because we can't cover that distance since we are not fishes. Same thing as artists. If you keep yourself in the space of what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to create, somehow you begin to unlock the processes that surrounds the mystery of those kind of imagery. Whether be it in video, whether be in photo, or whether be it you're even doing experimental work, which is a mashup of both. Which is why your prized, most worthy assets is your mind. It's the only thing that's going to separate you from the next guy. People talk about work ethics. Yes, work ethics is key, like showing up on time, doing the work, having proper presentation. Because at some point, you're going to get another ceiling whereby being good is not good enough. You get, you show up with all the tools, but your presentation is quack. And some guy who does not know anything comes out and can talk and brag his way through, and he gets like get it, and you're like, wait, how is he better than me? Most of us artists, we get locked up in that place a lot of our personal ego and stuff like that. You have to understand, like, all of this work as an oiled machine. If you take a car, the front tire is not most as important as the back tire. Every component of the car is important to moving it. Same thing you should treat your art. The camera is the heart of your science. What you choose to actually go with, right, is the heart that actually controls what you produce as a result. For myself, I've stuck to canons a lot. Because for me, they're the most things I can afford that could actually give me amazing imagery and help me stay hired. At least I can put my mouth where my money is. Because I totally understand, like, there are places that people will talk to me, I'll tell you that, do you know what? If it fails, I'll give you 100% refund. And the refund you're talking about is like probably 11 million. If it fails means they woke up and somebody missed something and they don't feel well and they're like, no, I don't like it again. Come and give my money back. That's the kind of fail. Like, I've dealt with people like that. It gets that crazy. I could give you stories like from now till tomorrow. I could give you stories. You get. And thinking about it, right? Funny enough, there's a scenario that happened, right? We shot something for Nestle. A couple of like 3 documentaries for Nestle. And we had different perspectives on how we should go about the directive of the commercials. You get. And when we got to the final stage, whereby it got to like the final board for approval, right? To cut the long story short, what happened was that all the imagery was amazing. You get. That came out of the camera. Everything was amazing. But the direction I stubbornly rebelled to and stuck to that could get me fired was the 2 that was approved. The one the agency was approved was the one that was rejected. So, and the one that was rejected was the hero campaign because they had like a main storyboard, which was the hero campaign and 2 support stories. So the support stories were now transformed into hero campaigns and the hero campaign was shut down. Now, all this speaks to What I said, your artistry, understanding your cameras, understanding most of these things that are technical. Because we can't be here talking about the camera that's, oh, that camera has ND. If that's the conversation you want to have, sorry, you're not ready for the main world. You have to move way beyond that. Like, you're not seeing the cameras as, we're not saying this as, oh, I like this camera because this is the best camera of the two. It's now because what is the best tool for the solution I'm dealing with? Do you get? When I shoot product photography, when I know I have high-speed work, by default, I go to the C700 because I know it gives me 240 frames per second. But I'm not going to be telling the client that or be arguing this. That's not the conversation they want to hear. They want the results they're actually generating. My new favorite camera right now, like the one I go with every day, which is my daily driver, is a C300 Mark III. There's a lot of reasons why I like that camera because of a lot of problems it has solved for me. I don't know how many of you are aware of lookup tables. They are called LUTs. LUTs are what some music video people used to put on their footage and to make the raw footage have color. That's like the basic way I can describe it. Okay? Now, with the advent of the C300 Mark III, right, because a lot of the work I do, right, requires post-production and other things, there's a need for me to always see what my end result would look like while I'm in my process shooting, so I don't have to deal with fix it in post. So we come up with like some tests to come up with like lookup tables that we can now load into the camera that will be seeing the end result. And we can be like, if it is spoil, no, it is spoil, offer. You get? We will not get the post and not be like, oh, if I can, I would have, if. And that's the reason why I love that camera. The C300, the C500, the C70, like those are like workhorses right now. Like they're like super hot cakes. And that's what I like lean on. But I don't go about talking about, oh, do you have 120 frames per second in your camera? No. Because at the stage of where the conversation I have is at the stage we actually talk about results. So I'll be happy to have this conversation if you want to know more about cinematography, if you want to know more about the science and the ones and zeros and the philosophy behind most of the things I do and how I approach things. You could like DM me on my Instagram and I'll be happy to like, I don't know, take you, or you can contact Taiwo and they could schedule something for you and we can have like a training section, a proper training section whereby we'll go like hands-on, have the camera come in place, have like a subject, shoot our own small mock-up short film or short commercial, and you get to like see process. Maybe you could take some of those experience and go build your next client, I don't know, times 10. Okay? Because I feel the shortest way to actually acquire is to actually see, replicate, and do it on your own. Okay? So, it was glad talking to you all. I hope we'll actually talk some more time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. I mean, how was it? So, part of what we wanted to do, or we wanted to do, is conversation we had with Mr. Sunday. The initial plan was actually to do some sort of hands-on. But we needed, Daniel specifically was asking for about 6 hours, and we know that will be tying us down. So the future plan of what we want to do is a fallout from the partnership is to have syndicate sessions where we'll have dedicated sessions in photography and cinematography. But of course, that is up to, yes, BROADNET for us to work out. A round of applause for Daniel, please. So in the heat of this value-added session, I would like to call on Mr. Hakeem Salam, who will take us through his experience also with Canon in the photography space. I'm sure Mr. Hakeem is a known name to everybody.
Powered by BROADNET Concepts.